Well, a court here in Germany has handed down a 2-year suspended sentence to a 97-year-old woman in connection with the deaths of thousands of people in a Nazi concentration camp. The defendant was found guilty of being an accessory to murder for her role as a typist at Stutthof camp. Her lawyers had argued it could not be proved she knew about the systematic killings there of Jews and others during the Holocaust.
I wanted to live. I did not want to die. It was easy to die, and it was harder to live. Maybe that's what kept me going. I don't know. I was right in the end. I have 11 great-grandchildren. The 11th is on the way. I'm a rich man.
Being alive is still a miracle for Abba Naor. He's one of the last survivors of the Shoah. The 94-year-old regularly travels from Israel to Germany to tell his story of how he spent his teenage years in concentration camps. In 1944, the Germans deported him and his family from Lithuania to the concentration camp of Stutthof in what is Poland today.
When we were brought to Stutthof, we were still halfway normal. We were dressed in our own clothes. Until then, we lived with our family in the ghetto, even though we were locked up. But in Stutthof, we began to feel that we were no longer a family.
Naor's mother Hannah and his little brother Berale were deported to Auschwitz and killed in July 1944. That was also the time 18-year-old Irmgard F. worked in Stutthof, serving as chief secretary to the camp's commander. F has mostly kept silent, stating she felt sorry to have been in Stutthof, but that she didn't know about the killing that was allegedly going on below her window. For Naor, what she said doesn't matter anyway.
If she did anything wrong, or committed a crime, why did they wait until today? You can't tell me fairy tales. The biggest fish will let go.
But for many survivors and their descendants, this trial is sending a signal, says lawyer Onur Özata.
They are not demanding these criminal proceedings as an act of revenge. It is also important to many survivors to testify, that is, to stand in court and tell their story, because what they also say is, we don't want it to be forgotten.
DW political correspondent Julia Saldelli has been following this trial. Julia, the defendant in the trial has received a 2-year suspended sentence. Some might consider that extremely mild given the nature of the crime. How did the court justify that sentence?
Now, this is what the prosecution asked for, and the court today went with what the sentencing that the prosecution had asked for, and that the majority of the plaintiffs in the case agreed with. The defense of the woman had asked for an acquittal, and this was the longest possible sentence that could be given without the woman, who is 97 years old, going to jail. So there was agreement also on the prosecution side and among the plaintiffs that this was an appropriate sentence, and the court basically ruled that the woman, who was a secretary of the commander of the camp, she was taking dictation, she was dealing and handling with the correspondence of the commander, and her window of her office looked over the concentration camp, so she must have known what was going on there at the time.
Okay, so there might still be some discussion about the sentencing. The survivor in our report, though, asked a very relevant question, one that many people will continue to ask. Why did it take German authorities so long to prosecute people who were complicit in the Holocaust?
after World War II, there were trials. There was a flurry of trials, especially against Nazi leadership, and that lasted for 5 to 10 years. But after that, a lot of the trials started to dwindle, and we've seen that not only for people who had important roles and who directly carried out murders in concentration camps, but especially for people who worked in concentration camps as guards or in other roles. They didn't undergo any trials until the 2000s, and there was one case that set a precedent, and that was in 2011 when a prison guard was convicted for aiding and abetting the murder of thousands of people. And in that case, the judge said that he held a shared responsibility towards the victims, and that was the precedent that made it possible for many other trials like the one that ended today to be possible.
Julia, thank you very much. Our political correspondent, Julia Saldelli.
Okay, so y'all just heard that audio right there, and that was coming from the DW News YouTube channel, and that is a German public broadcast service. That's what it says right there on their channel. Now, I know I'm kind of a little bit late with this story. It's like I said, it's a lot going on. Like I tell you, news is never ending. It just keeps on going and going and going. So this image right here is of the woman that they were talking about. Her name is Irmgard Ferkner. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce her last name. And she was a secretary during the Holocaust. And what she basically had names, she had documents. She literally did all the paperwork. And they said her office literally overlooked the concentration camps. She literally was like the right hand to the commander of the camp. Whenever they got new people to come in, she was the one that had their names and all of their information. She was actually in that position for 2 years. They said from June 1943 to April 1945, she worked as a stenographer and a typist at the, let me make sure I get this right, at the Stutthof death camp near what was then Nazi occupied Danzig and is now called Gdansk. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So she was there for almost 2 years, about almost 2 years exactly. And they said that she literally had thousands on top of thousands. I think they said around a little over 10,000 names that came through there that she was documenting. So to go off of trying to say in the defense of this woman that she did not know what her role was is absolutely absurd. I was looking in the comment section, and you had some people down there actually trying to defend her in so many words because of her age. It's amazing how fast you can get defended when you are a PC individual, no matter what age you are. But I don't, clearly they don't care. And they were interviewing, one of the people they interviewed was a person who was in the Holocaust, and he's actually just a couple years younger than she is. So they're really close in age. And they were saying, like, why did it take them so long to actually get her and things of that nature? And then one of the reporters had asked or said that it's a lot of people who was involved in that who didn't even get convicted or even caught until the 2000s. So you're talking about over 20, well, like around 20 or a little bit less than 20 years ago, when a lot of them were actually finally bought in, much like she was. So you got to think this woman was living freely for years before they finally got her. Now they mentioned about she got a 2-year suspended sentence. In other words, she most likely going to spend the rest of her days in her home under most likely what would be heavy supervision, as if she probably wasn't being heavily supervised already because of her age. Because as you can see, where is she going? They had to wheel her in. Now, I wanted to find this picture because at least you could see some of her face, because originally when they had brought her in, she had a mask on, she had glasses on, and it looked like she had on some kind of a head wrap, like some kind of a scarf, where she was almost trying to be completely incognito. Now, I have a question for them folks. Where was all the smoke for this woman right here, who's still alive and kicking? But y'all had all that smoke for Kyrie Irving for posting a link over a month ago. And this woman was involved in what would be seen as a genocide. She knew a genocide was going on. She was practically a part of it that slaughtered thousands of people. But y'all want to get mad at Kyrie Irving for posting a link. And it's very interesting, too, because when I see her, I think of Carolyn Bryant Donham, who is in the same, they're not in the same age bracket, but they're, they are up there. Because, Carolyn Bryant, she's in her 80s. And how she's still walking freely for what she was involved in. And it's crazy, the parallels, because both of them are PC women. They're both up in age. They're both old. They were both involved with the deaths of somebody or somebodies, but while not directly, they had involvement. While she was being a stenographer and a typist, documenting everything, Carolyn Bryant, while she didn't get her hands dirty with the murder of Emmett Till, she's the catalyst. And see how they're trying to not bring Carolyn Bryant Donham to justice? Even though this woman is up in age and they gave her a 2-year suspended sentence, at least they brought her before somebody's courtroom and actually convicted her of something. Carolyn Bryant Donham, the last time she was in a courtroom, she was there smiling and kikiing with her husband and brother-in-law and sister-in-law while they were about to get off of murdering a 14-year-old black boy. And that was the last time she was in anyone's courtroom. Crazy, right? The parallels are there, but there are definitely some differences. But yeah, let me know down in the comments or in the chat, were you aware of this story? I'm sure by now you probably have been, because this story has been out for like about a week now. But like I said, so much other stuff has been going on when it pertains to this. But yeah, they tried their best to keep this out of that sphere, so to speak. But I'm just curious, what do them folks got to say about this? Because this is some heavy stuff right here. And it's crazy because if my memory serves me correctly, wasn't there another person who was involved with the Holocaust? Didn't they get brought in like last year or a couple years ago? It was fairly recent. I do know that. It was definitely within the last 5 years. And I think they convicted them of something as well. It's crazy how many of them are still alive. It may not be that many, but it's amazing how some of them are still alive. And they're just now getting them.